Well, how do you heal your own soul? I believe we can through thanksgiving. Memories come with emotions, don't they? You know, when you pull up a certain memory, there's a lot of emotion that's attached to that memory. So have you ever noticed when somebody brings up a certain person to you in conversation, all the negative experiences and feelings it just gets conjured up on the inside of you just by the mention of their name. I remember when I was a kid, we had these snacks called Gushers. Remember the fruit Gushers? And you just put them in your mouth, and as soon as you chew on the Gusher, the fruit juice on the inside, which is hidden inside of the gummy, shoots out and fills your mouth. Our memories are like that, where when you focus on a memory, when you give your attention to a memory, when it re-enters into your consciousness, the emotion that's associated with that memory shoots out and you experience it again. Have you ever heard the saying that you forget what they said, but you'll never forget how they made you feel? You'll forget what they said, but you'll never forget how they made you feel. That's true about people. It can be true about places. It can be true about events. It can be true about certain seasons in your life. You remember how that person, that place, that event, that season made you feel. Maybe not all the details, but you remember that feeling. It's that juice that's hidden inside of the gummy. Now let's talk about pain, because we think all pain is bad, yet pain is a gift. In that pain is an indicator. We could have burned off our hands if it wasn't for the gift of pain. I was playing basketball and I had some pain in my left ankle, and it was just an indicator that I needed to take some weeks off to attend to it so that it can heal. I was intentional with my left ankle, so I went to the sports equipment store and I got an ankle brace for my left ankle, and I wore it continually because I needed to be intentional. I needed to attend to the place where there was pain. And so if you have a painful memory, when you hear the mention of someone's name, or a mention of a certain place, or the mention of a certain event, or a mention of a certain season in your life, and all you can feel is a gush of pain, perhaps it's an indicator that it's something you don't need to ignore, because often we want to ignore pain, but it's something that we need to engage and be very intentional about. Let's just say we have 3 filing cabinets when it comes to our memory, and I'm probably being oversimplistic here. But let's just say that there is a file cabinet called rage. And then we have another file cabinet in our soul called remorse. And then we have another file cabinet in our soul called gratitude. And so as we live through life, we begin to put files in each of these cabinets. Stories of people, of places, experiences, events, we put them all into these filing cabinets. And therefore, when somebody brings up somebody's name, you dig into the cabinet of rage and you feel that rage all over again. When somebody brings up a certain mistake, or something reminds you of a certain area of failure or shortcoming in your life, you jump back into that file cabinet of remorse and you pull out those feelings again. And when you revisit certain people, places, and events that you're thankful for, it brings up those feelings of gratitude again. Now, some memories make you angry. Some memories make you feel very guilty. So those are the 3 different cabinets. And some memories make you feel very happy, joyful, peaceful, because you have memories of Thanksgiving that are attached. So let's go back to the red cabinet here. If you're somebody who has filled up this cabinet of rage, you are an angry person. You're an angry person. You wonder why somebody has such a short temper, because they're packing a lot in their cabinet of rage. These file cabinets are loaded. People, places, events, seasons. And therefore, they have a lot of rage, from injustices, abuse, betrayal, disappointment. The list goes on and on. And so if you have filled up this cabinet, you are quite an angry person. Now, if you filled up the yellow cabinet, if you filled up the cabinet of remorse, you are a depressed person. You feel all this guilt, shame from your failures, from your misjudgments, from your mistakes. And therefore, if you've loaded up this cabinet of remorse, you are a depressed person. You have self-hatred, self-loathing. And, with all that said, in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1, the New Testament writer says, lay aside the sin and the weight that so easily entangles you. So, the idea is that the sin of the red cabinet or the weight of the yellow cabinet, the sins of our rage and the weight of our remorse, those are things that keep us from being able to run the race that God has set out for us. When you're carrying so much of that weight, the weight from the files that you've loaded in the cabinet of rage and that you filled up the cabinet of remorse, those are weights. It's like a ball and chain, as you can see in that picture. And you know who's going to win in this race. This man, he can't really go forward because he's carrying a ball and a chain. You wonder why some of us are so emotionally fatigued. Maybe it's what we're carrying. It's the ball and the chain. And so when you filled up those cabinets, you're carrying so much weight. You're tied to a ball and a chain, and it's going to keep you from going where God wants you to go and being who God wants you to be. So the way we heal our souls, the way we heal our own hearts, is we need to somehow transfer the files from the cabinet of rage and the cabinet of remorse into the cabinet of thanksgiving. And is there a way to even do that? Is it even possible to transfer files that have been in that red cabinet for years, that have been in that yellow cabinet for months? Is it possible to move them into the category or into the cabinet of thanksgiving? Because the more files you can transfer over, the healthier and the happier we become. Because everything that's in the blue cabinet of thanksgiving is fuel, is spiritual power. How do you do that? It takes effort, intentionality, courage, wisdom. You need to identify, extract, and nurture the positive from the negative. You need to articulate and describe the good that came out of the negative person, situation, events. And you need to process these files. And let me break it down furthermore. In some ways, this process is a lot like the desalination process. If you don't know about desalination plants, there's a big one in Carlsbad. I think that's the biggest one in the United States. And there's also desalination machines. But you can't drink ocean water, we know that, or else you'll get sick. Ironically, you'll get more thirsty. You'll die of dehydration when you drink a lot of salt water. It needs to be desalinized. You need to convert seawater to drinking water, and that is what the desalination plants do. And so you take what is in abundant supply, and then you process it, you convert it, and you use it for your own sustenance. So we need to desalinate our memories of people, events, situations, places, seasons. So take what is around you in abundance, and what's in abundance are the files of rage and remorse. And then you convert it into something useful, hydrating, and life-giving. And what this happens when you successfully have transferred the files from the red and the yellow cabinet into the blue cabinet. And everything in the blue cabinet is for your sustenance. Notice what the first step is to desalination. Seawater intake. You need to engage the pain. Now, I think we want to avoid the pain. That's why we engross ourselves in whatever we engross ourselves in, because we don't want to face the pain. We want to avoid the pain. But the first step to desalination is you have to engage, you have to intake the seawater. We have to engage the pain. And again, pain is an indicator that you need to give your attention to something. You need to be intentional with something. You got to heal up something. So desalination, the process takes about 6 or 7 steps. And I want to give you maybe 6 questions that we can use that will be these filters, screens and these filters. You see step 4 is reverse osmosis. Step 5 is treatment of the water. Step 6 is delivery of the water into the water supply. But I know that there's like 6 or 7 steps to desalination, but I want to give you 6 questions that can be used, that can be instrumental to desalinating our memories, if you will, from transferring the files in the cabinet of rage and remorse into the cabinet of thanks. Hope you're ready for the 6 questions. Here we go. Number 1, name how that hurtful someone has helped somebody else. Now, this is a good starter question because initially it's very challenging to even think about how that somebody that you hate so much has helped you. So how has somebody helped this somebody that is in that cabinet, in the red cabinet or in the yellow cabinet? How has that person helped somebody else? You know, I think a lot of us want to believe, and this is very primitive thinking, that some people are all good and some people are all evil. So we're very dualistic. It's very black and white. But the truth is, people are more complex than that. We are all 1,000 shades of gray, if you will. And so therefore, there are people who have deeply hurt me, who have greatly enriched the lives of somebody else. So name how that hurtful someone has helped somebody else. Number 2, can you think about one happy memory, not 100, just one happy memory that you have with that person? And by thinking about that happy memory, you're watering it. I have found that some of us, we can delete 98 positive memories due to 2 that were less than pleasant. However, do the 2 invalidate the other 98? Michael Jordan missed 20,000 shots. But does that take away from the fact that he scored 25,000 shots? I'm not saying that we discard all the mistreatment, abuse, and injustices and that we trust again. This is not a lesson on trusting people again. This is a lesson on fostering thanksgiving. But, you know, a common way that we slander other people is you report the 20,000 missed shots and you don't say a thing about the 25,000 shots that were made. And you're misrepresenting that person. You're demonizing them. It's unfair to them. It is slander. Because you're presenting it as if there's only negative aspects about that person. And by the way, if you're at that place where you can't say a single positive thing about somebody, maybe you can't talk about that somebody yet without slandering. There are situations that I haven't even talked about until it's been like 2 or 3 years because I can't do it without slandering. It needs to be processed still. Number 3, can you jot down what you learned from that relationship or situation and why you're a better person because of that expanded knowledge base? And truth be told, we don't evolve when we're comfortable. Comfort usually brings stagnation and complacency. If life was easy, we would never have to change, learn, grow, reach, strive, better ourselves. But I think we realize things about ourselves when we go through hell. I think this happens when we start realizing that wherever we go, we're seeing the same patterns, and the common denominator is me. And when our issues are exposed, then we have the opportunity to better ourselves. And it's an invitation into transformation. Number 4, who volunteered to go through the storm or that event with you? And what has their support meant to you? Think about that difficult season in your life. Trial, tragedy, rejection, whatever it may be. There probably was someone who responded to your pain and sought to be present with you. You find your fans when you're up, but you find your friends when you're down. Who has been a friend to you? A lot of us, we have many fans and no friends. And then think about what their support has meant to you. Sometimes we want God to pop out of the sky and say, I'm here to support you. And yet sometimes Jesus doesn't walk through the wall of your bedroom and hug you and say, I'm here, and give you a rose. Sometimes he reveals himself through the love of supportive people. God is love. And whenever somebody is compelled by love to respond to your pain, they're being led by God. They are God incarnate in that moment, in that season. And that is priceless. Who has been the extension of God to you during that time? Who has showed you something different? Number 5, think about the contrast that difficult person or experience has provided. The contrast. Fireworks are not appreciated at noon. We need a contrast, and some people were not meant to take center stage of your thoughts and of your life. Some people were meant just to be a curtain in the background, a dark curtain. Some places, some events, some seasons, some experiences, they weren't meant to take center stage. It was just curtain material to provide contrast, so that you're more thankful for the friends you have in your life after you had the contrast of the fickle fans. You begin to appreciate the blessing of your life, blessings of God in your present when you can look back at your past. It was curtain material, if you will. And imagine the brat you and I would be if everybody on planet Earth treated you like a king or queen, and everything you touched turned to gold. Who would we be? I think we'd be disgusted with who that person would be. Number 6, last. What would you have missed out on if that negative situation never transpired, or if that painful person never existed? Or I don't know what that thing was, but then some of the experiences that were negative, it was just a bridge. It was not supposed to be your permanent habitation, your permanent residence. It was just a bridge that you had to go through. So then why do we want to curse the bridge when it was necessary? Certain people, difficult as they are, they were a bridge. They were necessary to your upgrade. Certain events, certain experiences, don't curse the bridge, because the bridge was necessary. Now, in the heat of immediate loss, we cannot foresee the eventual blessing. That takes time. Therefore, I encourage you, start processing older files. Can you remember an event that was so painful, but now in hindsight you feel grateful? But in the frenzy of the pain, when the pain was live, all you felt was ingratitude. But then it takes time for the dust to settle, for life to happen, and then you gain the insight that comes from hindsight. And yet there's no hindsight without time. Sometimes we just need some time. Give people some time. It's going to take them some time to be able to process. Desalination, it takes time. Transferring the files, it takes time. Now, gratitude does not change the past. It doesn't make wrong things right all of a sudden. What's wrong, what was an injustice is still an injustice. But gratitude can help us understand the past in ways that impart joy and peace, that propels us forward rather than paralyzes us because we're locked into this ball and chain of rage and remorse. In 1 Thessalonians 5:18, it says, in everything give thanks. So eventually everything needs to make it into the blue cabinet. Everything. Romans chapter 8, verse 28, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God and them who are called according to his purpose. God will work all things together for good. So every file that you have is a potential for the blue cabinet. Is a candidate for the blue cabinet. And it's just something that we need to process